Hey guys, so this is one of my more overdue reviews because it's been a little while since I've seen this. It's been about over a week, like probably more to be honest, since I've seen it. But Fighting with My Family, one of the films that was coming out in sort of early 2019 that I was most looking forward to, because if you follow my channel, if you've been through the archives, or if you just know me in general, you know that I am a big wrestling fan. So if there's ever a movie about wrestling being made, I am all over that shit. Especially the fact that it's so based within WWE, but it's by a different studio, so it's a really interesting story, and especially in regards to how it has affected certain things in WWE. So it's quite an interesting backstory to this movie and what it has resulted in. Certain incidents involving The Rock, and definitely certain incidents involving the star of the movie, or the subject matter of the movie, unfortunately, Paige. But anyway, I digress. But the basis of the film is it's a biopic of the WWE wrestler Paige, a young English woman who comes from a wrestling family. In Norwich. Her dad is played by Nick Frost. Her mother is played by Lena Headey. I don't know the actor who plays her brother, but he was awesome. I reckon we will probably be seeing him in a good few other films. And the whole crux of the story is that this tight-knit wrestling family in Norwich, and her and her brother go for a WWE tryout, and she gets picked and he doesn't. And it's her journey to becoming a WWE superstar, as well as her journey of her and her family trying to come to terms with that, like the tension and the friction it causes between the brother and sister, that they both had the same dream, but only one of them can actually achieve that dream, while the other just will never make it. Just kind of heavy subject matter, but I'm just gonna come out and say this. I freaking love this movie. It's not the best movie. Like, it's not The Godfather. It's not. It's kind of by the books sort of sports drama. Like, if you've seen a lot of these underdog sports drama type Rocky Balboa films, it's nothing new. It's Rocky, but with a female wrestler instead of a boxer. But that being said, it might just be the wrestling fan in me. It might just be the sap in me, but I really like this. I just did, it is formulaic, but it's also really feel good. It's a plucky underdog story, and it does help that, it's one of the few wrestling films I've seen in my lifetime that really respects the industry that it's covering, because there's been movies in the past about wrestling that have just really not made the business look good and not made the fans look good. 2000's Ready to Rumble is a prime example. That just horrible depiction of wrestling fans. But this, it feels like they understand the industry, and it does, if you're not a wrestling fan, you can still watch it. It gives you enough of an insight into the industry to understand what the film is doing and what the story is. The performances are all great. Florence Pugh is the actress who plays Paige in this movie. She does a phenomenal job. A great star in her. But Nick Frost, I love Nick Frost in almost anything he's in, and this is just one of maybe my favourite Nick Frost role of his outside of Edgar Wright. No, definitely my favourite Nick Frost role outside of Edgar Wright. But he's just great in this movie, and he's hilarious, and this movie is funny. There's scenes in this movie that had me laughing in the cinema harder than I've laughed at I think, any comedy since probably Deadpool 2. Like, this was a really good comedy, and that's down to the director, Stephen Merchant. He really knows how to do, like, fun comedy. Like, nothing shock value, like, nothing really dirty or really R-rated, just nice, not even wholesome comedy, just nice comedy, you know? He also makes a really neat cameo in the movie. The Rock is in it, obviously. He was a producer. He's part of the reason why this movie was probably made, you know? Like, who would have, you know, I don't think it would have gotten the traction if it hadn't been for The Rock involved. Because this was based off a documentary, which I do remember seeing when it came out in 2012. So it is really cool to, you know, have seen that documentary and then now seeing the movie years later, knowing how Paige's career went, because unfortunately, the movie doesn't go into it, but unfortunately, if anyone is a fan of the current product, they know that Paige is no longer an active wrestler due to neck injuries, which is very tragic considering she had a rough go of it for a while in terms of injuries and personal issues, and she damaged her neck for the last time, sort of just as she was coming back, and it's all kind of sad. But you know, this movie does, you know, lighten the mood in regards to that situation. In terms of issues I had with the film, like I said, it is a tiny bit by the book, and it really goes for the underdog narrative. But I think there's a certain moment where, like, trying to make this underdog story sort of undercuts her legacy as a wrestler, because they do push at the end of the film like she was one of the key figures in what current WWE fans will know as the sort of women's movement, where, you know, women in WWE for years and years and years were just treated like shit. Like, in the Attitude Era, like, they were literally just eye candy to take their clothes off and strip and all that. And even when it became more PG, they still weren't given any time, and it was a lot of just, oh, you're a model, sure, we'll give you like a tiny bit of training, but you're not interested enough in wrestling to actually commit to training enough to be decent in the ring. So it was just really poor quality of wrestlers in the women's division, and just no care whatsoever, or no willingness to give them any legit real time to impress or anything. So it was like she did help change how women's wrestling in all of wrestling is seen nowadays. Like, 10 years ago it was the absolute shits, and now it's beyond anything that even I as a fan could like even imagine. But I think at times her legacy that they try to push at the end of the movie is undercut because of the underdog narrative. Especially her time in NXT is very not what it in real life it was. Like, NXT is really shown in this film as sort of like a real developmental, where like it's literally, it's part of your training is to compete down there, when it's like in real life, no. Like, it is its own thing, and they don't even show her being NXT Women's Champion, which I think is, in terms of her career and her legacy as a leading figure in the change in how women's wrestling is viewed, her being the first ever NXT Women's Champion is key to that. Like, I think personally that's her biggest accomplishment. You know, like, she was Divas Champion a couple times, but when you consider the lineage of that NXT Women's Championship and how many incredible female stars that title was won by after Paige had it, like all the four horsewomen, you know, Charlotte, Bayley, Sasha, Asuka, like so many top women in the world of wrestling held that belt, and it's like she was the first. So like, I feel like that was her biggest part of her legacy, personally, from my point of view. But that's not shown at all. So it's like, you kind of undercut her actual legacy by trying to get across this underdog element of it, which obviously I can understand why, but it was just kind of annoyed me a tiny bit. But it again, it's still more of a nitpick, you know. And then also in certain side characters, there was a sense of WWE tampering with it to help their image, because like obviously they weren't the main studio helping it, but you could tell there was some sort of input, because I feel like in certain ways, you know, it could have easily just been done normally, but they didn't do it that way in certain character developments, especially when it came to some of the women that we see Paige training with in this movie, who have sort of really set up these all blonde model bimbos, you know, with no wrestling experience. And it's like, I can understand the twist that, like, oh, they actually do care and Paige is just kind of being a dick. But I also feel like it would have just been easier to just actually have them be just model bimbos, because like that was very realistic, especially at that point in time. But I feel like, again, I feel like that's just more the wrestling fan in me being nitpicky. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie. One of the best films I've seen this year. Actually, so far, I think is my favorite film of the year. Fighting with My Family, I'm going to give it 9 out of 10. That's a big score. So anyway, like I always say at the end of these videos, if you do like my videos, if you do like my channel, click like and click subscribe. If you don't, okay. Anyway, bye.